Who can forget the impact of this place in the music? In a familiar Christmas song that's highly repetitive, we get quite a jolt when the chord for golden comes. Not only is it higher in pitch than the rest of the song, but the chord is a shocker because it doesn't even belong in the key in which we've been singing. Here's another very common holiday song. It still jars us because it's not part of the song's regular vocabulary of chords. In fact, if you examine the score for each of these, there is a sharp that has to be added because it doesn't belong to our original key. If you check carefully, you'll find it's the fourth step of the scale that has been raised. In this song, it is a B natural, which means the fourth step has been raised. Naturals are kind of crazy things. They never tell you what's going on until you ask a little question. Why is this natural here? Because the fourth step has been sharped. Got it? The raised fourth is a pointed tone, a leading tone, if you will, that points to the C, which is the fifth step of our key. If you hear me say this once, you'll probably hear it a dozen times in this session. This chord is headed for the fifth of our key, the syllable so. Okay, let's stop the theory for a minute. Here is a practical matter. If I want to play the chord for golden in a different key, how do I find it? Glad you asked. Okay, remember, number one, you are in the key of F here and you are aiming for the fifth step, which is what letter name? Right, C. Okay, number two, put yourself in the key of C. Very important. Play a C chord. Now, do you know it's 5/7 chord? Well, of course, it's G, B, D, F, and that's the chord you want for the 2/7. Every major or minor chord has its unique 5/7. It's very helpful to be able to grab this 5/7 and just slip it into the harmonic flow. Here's an example of a chord just being slipped into the harmonic flow of the phrase. This one is fairly similar, but the bass line moving by a big skip suggests a little more stress on our destination chord, which of course is 5, the dominant. We get a little more focus now on the 5 chord when the melody points to it with the raised fourth. Here also the chord sequence is 6, 2, 7, 5. harmonically. This gives a strong punch to the cadence. Another one with a raised fourth in the melody, but the effects lacks the punch of the earlier one because the voice lines are smooth. This one also has smooth voice leading, but the 2 chord persists for 2 measures, giving a longer coloration to the phrase. The chorus of this gospel song starts off with the 4 and 1 chords for the first phrase. The second phrase starts off with a bit of a jolt, harmonically speaking. The chord signals a change in direction. The whole phrase is in the 5 area. We can say that the song has modulated to the dominant. Before I discuss this anymore, you need to get the feel of it in your fingers. I think our fingers can sometimes tell us things that would require lots of words to explain. We're in the key of D here. Just play the D triad in your left hand. Think about the note your thumb is on. It's the 5th of our scale. Use it to lay out the chord that gave us the jolt on the words "see him." Notice that although it is an A chord, A is not on the bottom. The chord is A, C sharp, E. So the note in the bass, the E, is the 5th of the chord. So this is none other than a traditional solid cadence in the key of A. If you put the chords in the right hand, you will see that this is our customary cadence formula. In this end, the signal that a modulation is coming is the raised fourth on the word sing. The rest of the phrase is a model of how to write a convincing cadence. The bass line is mi, fa, so, do, steps 3, 4, 5, 5, 1. The tonic 6/4 comes on a strong beat, but the feel of the new key really comes at the height of the phrase, suitably highlighting the text for the word triumph. Here is the use of a 2/7 chord to highlight a phrase ending, yet it does not use the 6/4 chord. Instead, it gets its impact from being a whole measure long and occurs at the peak of the melodic line. In the gospel song, "He Lives," The verse ends with this highlight. Here we have only the soprano and bass lines. You can see that the key is B flat, but the second note puts the step in the bass. So we are going to build a C chord, which is our 2, our supertonic. Doing this over a 2-measure span gives the phrase a real boost to the height of the phrase and the crucial thought in the lyrics. Now here's a gospel song that uses the 2/7 to build the phrase to a climax. The chord on the word Jesus goes beyond the usual 2/7 chord. It's especially effective because it's a 2/9 chord. B flat, D, F, A flat, C. Here, though, you see only 3 of the 5 members of the chord. One of the most common functions of the 2/7 chord is to give more color and interest in the final cadence of a song. Here is a typical way of harmonizing the ending of this folk song. It's okay, but how much more interesting it is to slip in a 2/7 chord.
Here we go. This goes up. This is it's so good to just under $19 million. But it gets even better. The house right next to it.
But be careful, this should be used sparingly. It can easily become a trite ending. Let's review the modulation to the dominant again. Here is a common gospel song. We saw this earlier, so it should have a familiar look. On the syllable taste, we are jerked out of our home key and are headed for the dominant. We start off in the key of D, but then modulate to A. In terms of the key of D, the critical note is E, scale step number 2. But as soon as we secure that note, we have to switch gears in our head. That note is 5 of our new key. Let's try this now in the key of C. The melody is mi, re, do, so, 3, 2, 1, 5, 5. And we have just the tonic and the 4 chords. Here is a short routine to help you practice modulating to the dominant. We close with one more feature of many modulations. In the last example, the modulation is somewhat abrupt, which we might want, but if we want to soften the movement to the dominant, here is one solution. Yes, there is a 6/4 chord, but the chord before it is a chord that belongs to both keys. We say it is a common chord. Part of the softening effect is because the chord is minor. It's very easy to find if you're coming from the tonic. They are related chords. They have two notes in common. So in this case, the bass changing from B flat to G is the only change from the one chord. In this one we start in C, just two notes, then a common chord. Here it just appears as A in the bass and soprano. The rest is most easily analyzed as the key of the dominant. The 6/4 chord is entered by voices moving by step, so there is no jolt effect, but yet it is solidly in the dominant key. The strongest chord is, of course, on the word triumph. It's the peak of the phrase and on a strong beat.